Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm pleased today to bring back to Cheap Heat Productions a man who did quite an interview with Morris Shortall, who's off tonight, but we wanted to bring him back because we felt that we just scratched the surface of the many interesting aspects of his career. And we're going to get into some more of those. And I would be speaking about former WWF, WWE, TNA, standout indie talent on the Northeast and elsewhere. He's known as J.R. Ryder, but we're just going to call him tonight Ryder. Ryder, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm wonderful. It was a lovely introduction. Tell me more. It was wonderful. Don't stop. You make me feel young again. It was great.
plenty more where that came from. But I as I mentioned when we were briefly talking off air, fans like to hear about how you became involved in this crazy pro wrestling business. You're from the time that you decided, I'm going to make this a career. I'm going to get involved professionally. How did that occur? And can you just talk briefly about your breaking in process?
I was a musician, and we put an album out, and we played Woodstock '94, and we were becoming a pretty big band, playing with Overkill, Biohazard, Typo Negative, and we were the house band for L'Amour's for a long time. I only weighed about 150 pounds. I had hair under my ass. I looked like Sebastian Bach. So during this process, I got my girlfriend pregnant, and I had to get a real job because they weren't paying us to be musicians because we were just drunk rock stars all the time. So I started driving a beer truck for Miller Beer. So while I'm driving a beer truck, we weren't allowed to go back to the warehouse because we were Teamsters. So if you were done at 2 o'clock, you had to go hide for 3 hours. So I just joined a gym. And I just started lifting. And after about a year, I was about 205 pounds. And I was delivering beer to Aston Beverage. And I had 2 kegs on a hand truck and a keg on the shoulder or something. I'm walking in, and a guy walked up to me in the parking lot. And it was Nate Hatred, who was with CCW for a while. And him and I became friends. And we started talking. He kept trying to get me to go to wrestling school. But I thought it was just a waste of my time. And he finally got me down there, and I met Bay Ragney, and I got in the ring, and it was like one of the most natural things I've ever done. I always liked wrestling, but I never thought you could do it as a career. So I trained with Bay Ragney and Glenn Osborne for a long time. And then after that, got into the NWA and ECWA, trained with Jim Kettner and Simon Diamond, Pat Kenny. And Steve Carino gave me a call one day and brought me up to WWE. I thought I'd happen.
That's some real standout names that you mentioned there. Just briefly though, we hear a lot about how compared to the more modern paradigm and the sanitized, especially when you're looking at the WWE system and their developmental, et cetera, how different breaking in, even when you did, and the training that you underwent in terms of its physical rigor was back then. Was that your experience as well?
So I will say this, and I love WWE, and that's my alma mater. I think they're spoiled. And if you watch all the matches, they're all the same. Like when they had all the individual wrestling school, they get Monster Factory guys, and you had Liberty All-Star guys, and then you had the guys the Hardys were training. We were all different. So we would get in the ring and we'd have different matches and different styles. Like me and Chris Daniels is like a great match. He's going to do all the high-flying stuff. I'm going to do the sports entertainment stuff, and it works great. But now they all do – it's all finishers. I don't really want them this. How many times do they go through tables on Raw? They must have 30 tables in the back. Every 10 minutes we're going through a table. So, no, I don't like the way they do it now. I call it a 2-year bachelor's degree at a local community college in Orlando, and next thing you know, you're on TV. And I think they start about a minimum of $300,000 now.
Yeah, I think it's close.
Come on. There's no paying dues that way. Not that they're not respectful of the business, but I mean, good Lord, I was driving to Kentucky for $25 for Ian Rotten to wrestle the pit bulls, And
Mm-hmm.
I just think we were a much tougher species back then. It was a different world. Wasn't politically correct. You earned it. If you got even a step in that WWE ring one time, you earned it the hard way.
Yeah.
Now I just think, they get a track and field star, they put them in NXT, they can do a backflip, they put them on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I just disagree with it. But hey, listen, if they call me wanting to be a trainer there, I'll go teach them old school stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you this a bit down, but since you brought it up, working for that very controversial yet what a training ground that IWA Mid-South was in terms of, like, we could sit here and rhyme off the names that came out of there. Wanted to get your impressions, or we hear a lot about what the promotion was like, the company was like, very, very critical commentary from people like Cornette about IWA. What was your experience like working there? And was it as much a blood and guts operation as the mythology in recent times has suggested?
It was bad. And I wouldn't participate. Well, you go through my match, you're not going to see me going through thumbtacks. But every match with those guys, like, they're outdoing each other. In fact, my first show with those guys was the first time I ever met Gangrel, who to this day is still one of my best friends. I love the death. And
right.
When he was there, he wasn't going to do it either. He wasn't going through glass. And Harley Lewis, who was part of the Misfits one time, was down there. And they hit him with a light tube. And it hit him, and it sliced his liver. That's how bad it was. And it almost killed him. It was bad. Major surgery, had to rush him to the hospital, and he's a tough guy. But it almost killed him. So, no, I wouldn't participate in that. I wrestled. I think I wrestled Pitbull number 1, I think it was. And we did 6 minutes, and we didn't do any of that crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't about it. I listen, I don't think there's a place for it. I mean, in Japan with explosion matches, I don't think you need to outdo that. But you watch all the videos on YouTube, kids are just getting hurt. It's a bad example. I don't think it's a good idea. It's not entertainment. It's just blood and guts.
Kind of the one of the early forerunners or genesis companies, if you will, of the death match phenomenon and the risk that you talk about. It's amazing. Did you have a good experience or a negative one dealing with Ian Rotten?
I have no problem with Ian Rotten. He's a very nice guy. I have no problems with anybody. Listen, and I'll say this about myself. My reputation was I'm the tough one in the locker room. No one fucked with me. Pardon me for cursing on your show, but no one messed with me. Everybody knew who I was. And my upbringing was not of playing video games and collecting Pokemon. No, it was pretty clear you were going to pull that off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they were all very nice and very professional. I will say that.
Well, that's good to get that other balanced side of the commentary, the narrative, considering all the as I said, the abuse that seems to be hurled towards IWA and Mr. Rotten. But in terms of tough guys, I had to ask you about one of the preeminent tough guys in wrestling and MMA, and that was your experience working with Dan the Beast Severin in '98 in the WWF.
Dan and I had known Dan Fryer from NWA. Dan came to me in '90. He was in around '97. We were in Yardville, New Jersey, and he was talking to me about going to the UFC. And I told Dan, I said, Dan, they're never going to make any money. I appreciate it. He was going to train me and everything. I said, I really appreciate it, buddy. I'm going to stick with it and go to WWE, and that's where I want to be. And he said that the door's always open to call him. And I probably talked to him a few other times about it before WWE. But then when I debuted in WWE, my first match was against Dan.
Mm.
And I'm not going to say that he stiffed me on purpose, but Dan's a stiff guy because he's Dan Severin. A nicer guy there could not be. He really is a hell of a guy. Good dude. And as I said before, in his heyday, him versus Brock, he would have beat Brock.
Mm.
No doubt in my mind. Quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and he from all the information that's out there about, when you're talking about early pioneers and forerunners from MMA to wrestling, et cetera, he seemed to be really favored pro wrestling over MMA. Was that your understanding as well?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I think he was I think he enjoyed the aspect of being in the ring for any sport. He was a boxer. He was a Greco-Roman wrestler. I mean, he loved the challenge. And then when he got the ability to go in the wrestling and not get hurt, get a payday, I think he took advantage of it. Yeah. He's a great guy. And like I tell you, Ken Shamrock was another great guy. And another ridiculously tough individual that no one would mess with. And if you see their fights that they've had for back and forth for years, I don't know which one of them was tougher, but I think Dan got the better of it in the end there, right?
I would out of the totality of their matchups in the early UFC, yeah, for sure.
Well, I think Dan was the victor, yeah. But yeah, good guy, respectful as hell, and he listened to you. Like when I was going to work him, and Cornette grabbed me. He's like, the best I can do for you today is Dan Severn, and he started laughing and walked away. Dan asked me what I wanted to do. Like he was going to have, and I was like, Dan, there's nothing I can do to you that anyone's going to believe. So let's just get this over with because we both know how this is going to go. And that's what we did.
Did you have any other interactions with Mr. Cornette other than that in terms of your work in other locales beside WWF?
There are guys out there that they say they're a Paul Heyman guy. I am a Jim Cornette guy. And Jim Cornette did more for me than probably anybody in this business. He took care of me at WWE. Jimmy called me, again, in around 98, 99. And Jimmy didn't like calling 85 people to book them around the country at night because he was the booker. So when I was talking to him and I were becoming really good friends, I said, listen, Jim, if it's driving you crazy, just give me all the dates and I'll book everybody. And he goes, you'll do that for me? I said, of course I will. And that's how I became the booker for the entire Northeast. So if you wanted to work Northeast, you had to go through me for years until Kevin Kelly came along and he took it. That's kind of how that happened. But I love Jim Cornette. Great guy. Can't say enough good things about him. Funny as all get out. Refuses to get into an airplane as far as I know to this day. I haven't talked to him in a while. But a wonderful guy, and I can't thank him enough for my career.
Do you think, he's got one of the most successful pro wrestling podcasts out there. Do you think his I don't know how you feel about AEW personally, but do you think his critiques of AEW are spot on, or do you think they go a little past fair, so to speak?
Again, as I said before, I think anything that gets more eyes on the business is good for the business. I think AEW is good for the business. I don't think 3,000 high spots is good for the business. I don't think going through a table in every match is good for the business. I don't think, and honestly, I get a great credit. I think someone is going to die in AEW because they are reckless and they're not all that good. These are like putting gymnasts out there that aren't trained for sports entertainment, and someone's going to get seriously injured. I mean, look what Edge did. And Edge is my age. And he's trying to get jumping up. And he's regretting it now. Edge and I came in together. Like he was there when we got there at the same time. I won't jump off this table, let alone jump off the cage. I don't know who told him that was a good idea. I feel bad for him, but I appreciate it. But no, I think it's going far beyond just wrestling, where everybody's let me do the next crazy thing and get that pop out of the 25 marks in the crowd now.
Yeah, and the law, you hit the nail on the head there. The law of diminishing returns, right? You see that stuff on TV on a weekly basis. It becomes less value added for sure.
How do you finish a match? What's so special? I mean, how do you beat a guy with a sleeper hold after all that?
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it every now and then, but every match, no, I don't think that's great.
One question we got through social media was your work in '98 with the very large and impactful for the time that he was there, Kurrigan, a Canadian, fellow Canadian.
Kurrigan was with the Oddities, right?
Yes.
I like Kurrigan. He was an all right guy. He wasn't there long. He had him. Who else? He had him. He had Giant Silva. And a few of the guys I worked. I think I worked a lot of those guys. Kurgan was a good dude. Respectful. I think I did a couple dark matches with Kurgan, and he was always a good guy, and he listened. And I don't think he was very well trained. I think he was a rook, but he had a good look to him. He was big, so they liked him. So we get in there and just do the usual big man match where I take a ton of bumps, and then he goes over. But a very good guy. And Giant Silver was a good guy. I like Giant Silver. He choke slammed me about 18 feet in the air. And he gave me a big hug afterwards, which is a big hug because the guy is about 9 feet tall. He's huge. Gigantic. And at the beginning of the match with him, if you're watching, I'm putting my hand up, and I can't get my hand as high as his head. And the referee laughing too. So they were all good guys, man.
Speaking of massive individuals, I recently came across your match on television with Big Viscera, and wanted to the late Nelson Fraser, just wanted to ask you if you had a difficult time getting that match together, given some of the whether it was isolated or not of injuring people and trying to move someone that big. Was that your experience too?
If you watch what I always did in WWE, and certainly I'm not claiming to be John Cena or anybody, but the majority of my matches were against the big guys. And the reason for that is because I knew how to work the big guys where no one was getting hurt. If you watch, I'm always doing the big deal out of the corner, and then we're going to pause, and I would slow them down. And Viscera was God rest his soul, was a sweetheart of a guy. I wrestled him on the independents a couple of times, and we came up with a couple of those spots that we did. And then when I got there, I think I called most of that match in the ring. Yeah, the only thing I didn't call was that damn spin kick of his, which was to take your teeth out with. Which I think he almost killed. I think he got Christian in the face with that a few times. I got my hand up, so he didn't get me with it. But I wonder again. One of my favorite guys to work was Viscera. He was a sweet guy, and then after that one match, we went to the back, and we were just laughing because I kept punching him, and he kept telling me, "Go to the top," and I wouldn't stop punching him. I just kept hitting him, going, "No." So I'm taking my time. And as you'll see, he starts laughing in the middle of the match. It was pretty good.
What Morris wanted to ask you about was your social media post, which I caught as well, between when you were addressing Nicole Bass and Kane.
So, oh my God! So we're in Meadowlands, and Pat Kenny is in the ring wrestling Tiger Ali Singh. Now, at some point, I thought it was Pat or Tiger. One of them had a huge zit on their chest. Big. I mean, it's terrible. It looked painful. So I mentioned it to Kane. He goes, "Oh, that looks horrible." And he's got his mask on. Well, Nicole Bass is standing to my right. Kane's standing to my left. So I'm the little person in the middle of these 8 feet people. And she was 6'5", I think. And she's wearing heels. So she starts laughing, and she looks over at me and Kane, and she goes, "I get them on my ass all the time." And she was dead serious. She goes, "They're hard. I got one this morning." And Kane, just standing there, staring at the screen, just pulled his mask up and just looked over in such disgust. And then he slowly brought the mask down. And he just walked away and left me there with her. And she's still going. I finally went, "Nicole, I got to go consult Kane. I'm sorry." I said, "It was nice walking." It's been on for 10 minutes. It was so disgusting.
Yeah, that would be hard to respond to. Did you know of what the deal was with her when you were there at the same time? Why it was that she wasn't? I don't want to say she didn't get over, but wasn't used a great deal there during that time frame, given her stature that you're speaking of and look.
Well, again, a very nice person, wasn't made for this business. I guess it was her husband or her boyfriend was always with her, and he was a strange fellow. I get she could have been the original China, but she didn't have the personality for it or the ability. She was gigantic. I mean, she was way bigger than China. She was huge. And, she just didn't have it in her for the ability. But again, she was a very sweet lady. She was nice. And I didn't want to hear about her ziddle up ass, but other than that, she was very nice to everybody. I don't think anybody disliked her. She just didn't really fit in with that style of what we did.
In terms of perennial favorite characters from the Attitude Era, the Godfathers, right up there, and wanted to ask you about your dealings with him in terms of that that whole. It's out there that he was a favorite in the locker room, a lot, just a hoot to be around outside of the ring, too, and quite the THC guy. Was that your experiences with him as well?
I will tell you that the Godfather character is him. That's not a character. That's just him in a fuzzy hat. He is everything you see on TV. He is an absolute riot. And you try and hold a straight face around him in the ring is almost impossible because he'll break you. He will. He's a riot. He's a good guy. I've never smoked weed in my entire life. It's not my thing. I've never seen him smoke weed, but I've also never seen him deny it. I've heard the stories. But a great guy. I wish him well. I should probably give him a call one of these days. He's a really good dude. In fact, after WWE, we had a website. My buddy had a website, I should say, called Bang the Champ, which was an MMA/adult website, and they were going to bring Godfather in for an appearance at it. And then I guess they wound up canceling the event. Florida canceled the event on them or something, but he was going to come down for that. I was dying to see him at that thing. He would have been hilarious. A very good guy. I think still, does he own Cheetahs, or he's the GM of Cheetahs in Vegas still, or maybe he retired by now. I'm not sure.
No, I think he does have a management position there too, and is still active on the the convention circuit. And I've had that same experience with him too.
The perfect job for him.
In terms of legendary figures that you've wrestled, and at a curious time too, wanted to ask you when I saw that you worked the Iron Sheik in '99 on the Independence as well, and what that was like at that late stage of his career.
Sheiky was always fun to work. He didn't want to do anything, right? He couldn't do it. He was an old man. But my favorite Iron Sheik story was in Hawaii. We wrestled in Hawaii for a Metal Maniac, put on some shows in Hawaii, and they flew us out, and Sheiky was there. And me and Sheiky and my brother were there. My brother was a cameraman for us, and we were hanging out the whole time. My whole goal when I went to Hawaii for this was to meet Don Ho. All I wanted was the only reason I went. And everybody told me, you'll never meet Don Ho. It's impossible. No one can find Don Ho. He's 1,000 years old. I think it was the last night we were there. I found Don Ho at his restaurant. So me, the Iron Sheik, and my brother went to meet Don Ho.
Wow.
And I go walking in. I walk up to Mr. Don Ho. Oh, Mr. Don Ho, my God, my dad's a huge fan. I want to come and meet you and shake your hand. He's, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. And my brother says, oh, Don Ho, my mother loves you to death. He shakes his hand. And Iron Sheik walks up and he goes, hello, jabroni faggot Don Ho. I beat the Hulk Hogan. You're a complete faggot. Take a picture with the Sheiky and put his arm around Sheik. And poor Don Ho is mortified. Like, what is going on here? So I have a picture, and I'll put it on Facebook later. Me, the Iron Sheik, Don Ho, and my brother in Hawaii. And then he goes, as soon as they take the picture, click, he goes, oh, that's good. I'm going to the bar, jabroni faggot Don Ho. You're buying my drinks. And walks over to the bar. Funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Did Mr. Ho not know who the Iron Sheik was? That must have been mortifying if he didn't know.
He didn't know that. He knew after.
Yeah, I guess so.
Iron Sheik looks like a faggot.
Politically correct.
Unbelievable. It was so funny. The look on Don Ho's face. I'll put the picture up on my Facebook later. They can go check it out.
That's tremendous. The drug policy in WWE in the late '90s, or the whole testing protocol, that sort of thing. What did you have any knowledge in terms of that situation coming off the the years previous and the whole McMahon thing with the steroid trial? It seemed like guys were there was that period in the mid '90s where size went down, but then like gas to the gills again during the Attitude Era. Was that your knowledge as well, or your perception?
Well, I mean, the guys were on the gas, obviously. Listen, they're still on the gas. These guys running around. You don't get 20-inch arms by accident. You can see when the guys are on trend. They started that. I believe they started that because they were going public with the stock, and he wanted to make sure that the stock would go as high as possible. And I guess that helped them having the drug policy and wellness policy there. The biggest flaw of that was making everybody wear suits and ties. Because you couldn't travel like that. You guys are in duffel bags. You carry your suit in a duffel bag. You look like a mess the next day. So that was the hardest part of that. But as far as the drug testing, I mean, I had nothing to worry about. None of the guys I knew ever tested hot. I think some guys would take Adderall and they would get hit. But at the same time, there was some stuff from GNC at the time you could buy that you would get hot for. And guys were dealing with that and fighting it. But I think most of the guys out there they would either, if they would do that, they would do probably Percocets and they would smoke weed. I didn't partake in that. I just drink beer.
Mm-hmm. What from your experience? What a lot of folks talk about, the old school fans anyway, talk about how there was a time when someone with your size, someone looked like a wrestler, on the sauce or not, and now it seems that, especially again with AEW, that there's some really small guys in wrestling now, and they don't have that eye test in the airport where people turn and go, that's somebody. I may not know who they are, but that's somebody. Do you think that has hurt the business, that they've allowed, and not to pick on anybody in particular, but the Orange Cassidys, the Young Bucks even, and smaller. Do you think that's hurt the business, taking that that 80s sort of mindset and mentality out and just presenting regular looking Darby Allin, regular looking humans, so to speak?
Well, again, anything that puts more eyes on the industry, I love. It seems to me that it's very hard to find guys my height and my size that want to do this anymore. Like they really don't exist. This new generation is mostly small guys. They don't want to work out. They want to go play Pokemon or whatever the heck they do. And most of them don't lift. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say a bad thing about Sami Zayn. They wouldn't have put him on TV. I like him. He's a great worker. He is, but they wouldn't have put him on TV then. But it's a different era now. Back in my day, they told me I wasn't big enough, and I'm 6'3", 250, 240. So they wanted me to be 300 pounds. I couldn't do it unless I wanted to gas myself to death. I would be dead by now, but I wouldn't do that. As far as the guys, I mean, listen, I respect anyone that gets in that ring. I respect anyone that puts their life on the line. I don't know Darby Allin. He wouldn't have survived 45 seconds because if he got in the ring back then, they would have hurt him. They would have made a man out of him really quick. Mm-hmm. It would have been bad. And listen, there's another guy. Let's get back to him. What is it? He might be the one that dies on TV. He's diving off the things that he shouldn't be diving off of. You don't need to do that, man. Hulk Hogan, pay attention. He made more money doing this than anybody. All Steve Austin was give people the finger and stun them. You don't need to dive off of balconies on your head. It doesn't. Well. But no, the size thing, it doesn't seem like they're interested in being big guys anymore. You're going to have a few monsters come in. Roman's a big guy. Cena's still a big guy, but they're few and far between. They're mostly like 5'7" now, trying to do as many flips as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That when do you think that paradigm sort of flipped? Because I think you're absolutely right. Back in the day, 6'2" and 240, 250 was the absolute, the lower end if you wanted to be mid card or above. When do you think that changed, and do you ever see it going back? Because a lot of old school fans still can't really get into the product, so to speak, because of those, myself included, because of those issues. But maybe we're not the target demographic that they're looking at. But it's really hard to reconcile the product when arguably, and I don't think it's much of an argument, it was better, and now.
Well, it goes back to less is more, right? I mean, it was better because we didn't do as much. We told a story. I don't see the stories anymore. These guys just want to do flips. When did it change? man, around 2017, I think it started to happen. I think at the end of the Austin era, the PG era came in, right? And that's when the little guys started showing up. And listen, there's some great little guys, like AJ Styles, like one of the greatest to ever put on a pair of boots. You know, I worked him in TNA. We had a great match. He cried because he claimed I stiffed him in the head after, you know, it's okay for Samoa Joe and then to kick each other in the face, but God forbid I hit you a little hard. But like they all want to be him. I don't see AJ doing that stuff. He's not diving on his head. Well, I mean, if you're going to be a small guy, at least be smart about it. And AJ's jacked to the moon.
I was just going to say he looks like he's a giant now in comparison.
And listen, he was always in good shape. He always had lats. He always had abs. These guys don't even. I don't know how they don't get hurt. They have no muscle on them at all. They just get in the ring as a string bean, and then they want to do power moves all day long. It's not believable, and that's why no one wants to watch it. Well, if I get in the ring with AJ, I'm going to throw him around like a rag doll, which we did. It made sense. And then they got me out of nowhere. These guys are 4 feet tall doing power bombs on guys my size.
No. Along this same sort of line, we've seen, since about 2015, 2016, the explosion of the women's revolution in especially the major companies, where they went from being like an attraction on the card to, we've had a couple full women's pay-per-views and all the attention on there. A lot, again, of the old school fans' problem with that is it's very difficult to, and I know Cornette talks about this as well, but it's very difficult to reconcile their work in the ring with men, and some of them are so small and getting injured continuously because trying to work like a man. Do you see that as another downside to the industry now, or is it a net positive that more females have more spots and getting pushed harder, etc.?
Well, let's take Becky Lynch, right? Becky Lynch is a legit tough fellow Irishman. She's a little tough one. I don't think she's that big, but she certainly proved she's tough. I think she brought a lot of eyes to it. Certainly Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair brought a lot of eyes to it. I noticed they're bringing in a lot of the girls from Japan. So I think that might be hurting it a little bit because it's too much Japanese stuff. But I think the girls are doing good. And I will say this. I think their Money in the Bank match was better than the guys. I think it was. But if you watched it, you'll see a lot of botches. The girls have a tendency to botch a little bit more. But when they pour it on, they did a really good job. I think they brought more attention to the business, which is good. I don't want to watch girls beat each other up. I don't think it's attractive. I preferred watching Trish Stratus walk around in lingerie and Lita, and then every now and then they go put on a banger. But they are trying to compete with the men, and knock on wood, none of them have been seriously injured. But let's face facts. Women cannot take a fall like a guy can take a fall, and they're going to wear out quicker. So they do have to be careful. And the ropes are a lot higher for them to fall off of when they're that high. Me falling 6 feet and them falling 6 feet, that's a big difference. I cover more ground. So when I hit, I spread out the pain. They don't. They take it all in one shot. So hopefully they're okay. They're doing a great job. I think they need to talk a little better. They all have the same kind of attitude when they come out through the curtain. Most of them, they're just a spoiled girl. I don't think that they don't have a whole lot of character development with the women. They got to work on that.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of Trish, wanted to ask you about your work with TNA, and especially any stories that you might have about fellow Canadian just up the highway here, Mr. Andrew Martin Test.
Well, Test and I originally met at ECWA at Jim Kettner's when he was still wrestling as Andrew Martin, and he was just breaking. I guess he was on their developmental at the time, but he came in and we became friends. And he was at a show, and I asked him because I knew he was getting called up. I said, "What are they doing with you? Did they tell you yet?" And he started laughing. He goes, "I was going to talk to you about it. They want me to dress just like you." I started laughing. Oh, great! So now I'm going to be the you imposter. He goes, "I'm sorry, it wasn't my idea." Dude, I will tell you, and we got along great. But as soon as they put him in that black leather outfit like mine, the friction started. I could feel it coming on, like he was mad. But I didn't care. I was still wearing. They never told me to take it off. And then the only reason I ever changed my outfit was because Bradshaw asked me if I would put on a different color. So that's why if you see some of my matches, I'm wearing blue or red, or I'll be wearing some red flame tights because I was going to go into the Brood at one point. But Test and I looked so much alike back then that they started calling me Quiz. So there was Test and there was Quiz. So there was talk of putting us together as a team. Kid Rock was coming in to play a Raw. So there was also talk that I would be Kid Rock's bodyguard, right? And I wouldn't let Test in to see Kid Rock. I'd stop him, and then Kid Rock would get mad at me and fire me, and then I would come back after Test as Quiz, and then eventually make amends and become tag team partners because we looked alike. But we settled our beef. We worked pretty well together. He was at the end. I'm sorry what happened to Andrew Martin. It's a sad story, but he was a wasted talent. I honestly think he could have been the WWE champion, but I think his demons held him back. And he was at the end was a very good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems very down to earth despite his stardom. Were you aware of that famous drama that was happening during the time with him and Stephanie when he was getting pushed to the moon there, and it appeared that Triple H came into the deal and his push and everything sort of went by the wayside. Did you have any awareness of that when it was going on?
I don't know what happened to his push. Again, I won't say a bad thing about the guy, but when you have demons, that will stop your push quickly. Guys don't realize you're always being watched when you're there. It doesn't matter if you're in the building, you're in the ring, or you're at the bar, or you're at Wawa. It doesn't matter. You're being watched. I got in a fight in a bar in Wildwood that I did not start, but I won. And I had heat for that for almost a year. And I'm the one that got hit with the bottle.
With a fan?
No, that was another story altogether. But so that happened a long time ago, and I had heat for about a year because they kept booking me. But it was all dark, so they put me on TV for a little while. And then they came to me and said, listen, when you're out, you're representing us. And that's how I was like, I didn't start it, but I will walk away next time. So,
wow, that's interesting. It's not like you lost the fight and would have got heat for that from like the Bill Watts regime. Was it with a fan that hit you with the bottle?
No, it was another one. It was an indie guy that did it. A jealous guy. I turned around and hit me with it, and then he got his ass whooped.
Yeah.
But listen, if I was 5'7", I wouldn't have won. But again, I'm not the guy. But and I even squashed that beef with him years later. I'll keep his name out of here. God rest his soul. But these guys do stupid shit, and sometimes somebody else doing something stupid will fall on you. Was it Rob Van Dam was the heavyweight champion of the world, and who was in the car with him had a Percocet?
When he got busted?
Yeah. So the other guy had a Percocet on him. It cost Rob the world title.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to watch who you hang out with. Your associates are not your friends.
Sabu, wasn't it, in the car with him?
Was it Sabu? Maybe it was Sabu.
Yeah. Morris just confirmed it was Sabu. I always think back to that Iron Sheik Duggan thing.
Yeah. And look what happened to those poor guys. You're always being watched. And listen, that goes for everything. I don't care where you work. You're always being watched. So if you want to act a fool, don't get mad when you get fired from work for it. And I got like 200 employees. I'm telling you, don't act a fool because you're being watched.
100%. Fans wanted to know if you had any Steve Austin, Taker, or Rock stories from this glorious period.
So in and around 2000, there was a snowstorm that hit Baltimore. And it was on a Tuesday, and they had to cancel SmackDown. And there was like 5 feet of snow in like 5 hours. It was bad. So they put us all up in the Omni Hotel right across from the arena. Vince had the beer companies bring us enough beer that we wouldn't leave the hotel. We had all the strippers showed up there. Like we were set. And I think we had the whole 7th floor. But you got all the 7th floor, and it was just smoke, right? So I was walking to the elevator. I had a young lady with me to my room, and I was walking to the elevator, I hit the button, it opened up, and there's Rock with not one, but about 3 or 4 very attractive young ladies all over him. And I guess at the time, I'm going to get in trouble here, but I guess at the time he might have been married or getting divorced. But that's why he got a divorce. But and I just started laughing. Hey, Rock, and I gave him a little thing, and he just pushed the button, and away he went. But Steve Austin, I didn't interact with him very much, and I'll tell you why. I was kind of intimidated by Austin. Austin's a hard guy to get to. Once you get to him, he's funny as hell. The only time, and this is my own fault, being young and stupid, and again, always being judged, I walked into the arena and I was wearing a muscle shirt, but like one of the skinny strap shirts. And my son had bought me a new bag, and it was blue. When he picked it out, he was like 6 at the time, so him and Bob got me a new bag. So I had my blue bag and my little skinny strap shirts, and I walked up, and there's Steve Austin and Shane. And I said, hey, Shane, hey, Steve. And Steve just stopped. And he goes, nice shirt, cute bag. I went, yeah, sorry, Steve. Yeah, cute shirt. So I'm walking down. Sorry, Steve. So he was a river, but he's a good guy. He certainly did a lot for the business. But with that one, as far as Undertaker put my match together with Nathan Jones.
I was going to ask you about him next, actually, along the lines of working the big guys.
Yeah, that was me and Undertaker put that together. And Fit Finley was in there. And I think Undertaker was the only one that could really keep Nathan Jones, calm and on the road and talk to him, because he was training them. And Taker's a good guy, man. Taker's a really good guy. He's the cool hand Luke. I can never say enough good things about him. I never had heat with him. Always shook his hand first. He was the locker room leader. I don't care who had the belt. It was Taker. If Taker wanted the belt, he was going to take it. He was a really good guy. Mm-hmm. And Nathan Jones, my opinion, was a good guy too. Little bit of a whiner at first, and you would think he wouldn't be because he's 370-pound power lifter. But once we worked, we became really good friends. He's a good dude.
Was it an actual fact? Speaking of Nathan Jones, that he got on a plane, went to Australia, and then booked it and didn't go to the show, and that was it for him, or was it more nuanced than that?
His exact words were, "I'm quitting," and they were like, "You got to tell them you're quitting." And he said, "When my music hits and I don't walk out, they'll know I'm not there." And that was it. He was gone. Never went back. I think he said it to Brock Lesnar. When my music hits and I don't walk out, they'll know I don't work here anymore. He was gone. But I think part of his reason to quit was that plane ride from hell.
Oh, he was on that?
I think he was on that. I think that was one of the things that pushed him over the edge. Because he was sitting next to Paul Heyman. Because Paul Heyman tells the story. And Nathan was just staring at him, just getting madder and madder and madder. It might have been that tour. I think it was. Paul tells the story better than I ever will, because he's a riot.
Was it a case, to your understanding of, and this is something that I wanted to also explore with you, that the travel schedule back then, and I mean, in the territory days, et cetera, was absolutely grueling and taxing and all those things. Now they've cut it down quite a bit. We're not seeing, hardly any house shows, so to speak. So how did you deal with that aspect of it yourself, in terms of even just in a localized area? That travel wore out quite a few people.
Well, the problem with the travel is it was usually the big guys, because they're going to get hurt, because you can't. They're on airplanes 7 or 8 weeks out of the year. Well, if you do the math, it was like the straight 7 or 8 weeks, and you're on an airplane and you're living in hotels, and it wears you out, and you get hurt, and you get injured. And the sad part about that for a lot of those guys was they get hurt, they take a Percocet, they get hurt again, they take 2 Percocets. Look at poor Kurt Angle. I mean, they abused that guy. They broke his neck, and he kept going, and then he got hooked on the pills. So the travel was too much. I think Hunter realized that, and that's why he cut it back. I didn't have to travel like that. Usually I was in a short flight or a drive away from him. So I'd work, I'd probably work for him 6 times a month. But the other guys were there constantly, just driving everywhere. I was actually fortunate. Everybody else wanted to be Steve Austin. I kind of wanted to be the Brooklyn Brawler. He's still there. It's 30 years later. He's still got a job, right? So, and he made a lot of guys look really good. So I kind of envied him.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of old school fans have really, and one of the things that we do on this channel is spotlight the individuals who, whether you use the term job guy, enhancement, whatever term you prefer, star maker, etc. Their contribution to the business was significant in terms of getting guys over, building anticipation for feature matchups. Do you think that it's something that we, with the dawn of the television era and the focus on ratings and quarter hours, we don't see a lot of that anymore? I mean, rarely, occasionally, but do you think the loss of using enhancement talent in a constructive manner, do you think that's hurt the business, or are we talking about a business that isn't the same anymore, given that it's a television product now and ratings and quarter hours are so important?
Well, you had your big main shows. I mean, when I was there, you had Shotgun Saturday Night, you had Sunday Night Heat, you had Velocity, you had Super Astros. I mean, I was working in 2 days. I'd be on 4 different shows. So you had to have guys that could do that. Now you wouldn't get Raw and SmackDown, right? Do you have any other shows? I don't think there is. Maybe something they do on YouTube called Steed. But yeah, you don't really need the guys anymore like us because they have NXT. They can just pull somebody out of there and have them up and get squashed, but they learn something. And if you look back, most of the guys that are at the top of the roster now, which is a Sheamus and guys like that, they were all in a spot like mine. They were all dressed as cops. They were all getting job. They did it too. That's why even Hunter will say, I think he said at a press conference, the best wrestlers were always security guards or cops. But they were all the indie guys. But they kind of pushed away from the indie guys, which I guess they all went up on AEW, all the indie guys.
Yeah, 100%. You touched on extra work there. Did you have any of that yourself that stands out on TV? I know you wrestled extensively, but did you ever do any straight extra stuff that pops out of your mind?
I had one night where I was a cop. I was the guy in the front row. I wrestled, and then I think I came out and wrestled again. I did 2 matches. So I had to hit Mark Henry with a magazine because he was hitting on China, and then I worked. I forget who I worked that night, and then I had to be a cop and come out and arrest Chaz from the Headbangers. And then the handcuffs, they gave us the wrong key to the handcuffs. So we couldn't get the handcuffs off him. And that was poor Vince Goodnight. It was his first night there. And he's in charge of unlocking Chaz. So he's in the ring, and we're on live, and he can't get the cuffs off. And Chaz is getting madder and madder and madder. And I'm outside with the Inferno kid, Danny Jamundo, and we're supposed to be arresting the girl that was lying about Chaz. So finally, Inferno goes, all right, I'm leaving. And he takes her. I turn around. He's gone. And he's going to leave Vince in the ring by himself. I had to go in, and magically I got one of the cuffs off Chaz just so he could celebrate with Mosh. That was a fun evening.
Live TV and the pitfalls thereof.
When angles attack.
Good point. Speaking of dudes that have really been around a very long time and continue to be active. Billy Gunn on AEW, 60 years old, looks like $10,000 million. Just incredible. You worked him on television. I believe it was Jacked.
Yeah.
In 2001. What are your thoughts on that man's career and your experience in the ring with him at that time?
I think he should have had a championship run. He's one of the most talented guys there. And most people don't know this, but he can jump higher than anyone in the locker room. They would have he could jump at Olympic level. Shelton Benjamin could not jump as high as Billy Gunn. And wow. Billy Gunn probably weighed 40 pounds more than him. Well, and I've seen Shelton Benjamin jump backwards to the top rope, and he could not outjump Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn is one of the best guys I've ever been in the ring with. I'm the first guy that he let kick out of the Famouser, which I took as a huge honor that he allowed me to do. Even Paul Bearer said that. but I had a great match with him. I really enjoyed him. I learned a lot from him, and he is in such good shape. I'm trying to keep up with him. I can't. I don't know. I like beer too much. I guess he doesn't drink. I don't know. But the dude's got an 8-pack. It's crazy.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Well, he works out with what's his name, the American Gladiator guy, who's in really good shape. He's like the best looking guy that ever lived, right?
Do you when you see a guy who's still like TV ready and 60 like that, and you compare it to some of the individuals that we talked about that don't seem to value working out, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that's part of the reason, notwithstanding WWE making huge dollars now as an entity in and of itself, but do you think that hurts the TV product when you've got, and again, not to pick on particular individuals, but say Cassidy or Allen, and then Billy Gunn comes on, and you see the disparity there between the two. Is that a I mean, not that there's a ton of Billy Gunns left, but does that hurt the product in your opinion?
Yeah, well, listen, as Vince always told us, you have to suspend disbelief. If Billy Gunn is standing in the ring with Orange Cassidy, I cannot suspend disbelief to think that Orange Cassidy could kick Billy Gunn's ass with his hands in his pockets. And going back in time, I would love to see Bradshaw get in the ring with Orange Cassidy and him put his hands in his pockets. Nothing would give me greater joy than watching him and Ron Simmons unmercifully rip through the AEW locker room. I don't get it. I don't know why the guys won't hit the gym. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they don't need to. Maybe they think they're making enough money they can make a living doing it. I mean, certainly the Young Bucks are probably loaded. You can't make yourself taller, but you can get abs. I just don't think they care, man. They don't care. They're making money and they're having fun. And God bless them. I can't fault them for making money, but I wouldn't pay to see it.
What when you're looking at independent work, you had quite you had quite a good experience, quite a substantial number of dates with WWFE, and then you switch to the indies, and you're working guys like legends. Like I saw Honky Tonk Man, a favorite. We've had him in Great North Wrestling, Wayne, numerous times. Just a great guy, great performer. And then another Great North Wrestling vet, Brutus Beefcake, worked him too. How is that experience different for you when you're going all out on TV and then working with some of these older legends that at the time that especially Honky didn't want to bump, that sort of thing?
Honky, Tom Brandi, actually, I worked Honky a few times, and Tom Brandi actually walked up to us after the match and said, "You two were born to work each other." I'm not so sure I bumped when I worked Honky. I did chop Honky one time, but it was his fault, and he was furious about it. I went to punch him, and he put his hand up, so I had to turn it and chop him right in the chest. He was so fucking mad. And I want to tell you, this is your fault because you put your hand up. I was going to punch you, and you blocked it, so you got shot. And he actually admitted and laughed about it. But we had a couple of really good matches. I think we went almost an hour one time. I think he put me through a cake and everything else. We were in a fire hall in Delaware. It was a big cake. I think he put me through the cake and everything. Maybe Tom Brady hit me with the cake. But we had a great comedy match, and at the end, he hit the rock and roll on me and got the cover. But a good guy, man. I liked working the legends. It's fun, and I learn something every time I get in the ring. Whether I get in there with an amateur, or I get in there with a legend, I'm always going to learn something. One match with Honky Tonk Man or Iron Sheik, and I don't care how old they are, you learn more doing that than you will 20 matches on the indies. Because they're going to slow you down, they're going to teach you how to work, and then you figure out, listen, maybe I don't have to bump 4,000 times and dive on my head. I like the bump in the WWE ring. It was a nice smooth ring, but on the indies, I didn't bump that much. You'll see some big bumps, but nothing. I wouldn't go crazy. I wasn't taking 30 bumps a match. Longevity. I'm going to be 80 years old someday. I don't want to be in a wheelchair.
And like you said, less is more. Less is more.
It's not it's not a gymnastics competition. The show.
Do you think they just don't teach basic ring psychology anymore? Do you think that's the issue, or is it just the Meltzer influence, the 5-star, the Japanese high spot stuff? Where do you think psychology went out the window?
Psychology died with TNA when they were doing the X matches and they were dropping off ladders. Chris Daniels but Chris Daniels actually knows psychology, so I shouldn't throw him in the mix. But guys like that's what killed it. It was all that crazy stuff. Let me see how high I can bump and get that little pop, and that's what killed it all. Because at some point you can't suspend disbelief; it just gets stupid, and that's what it is. But no, there's no psychology anymore. Listen, do they teach it? I know they teach it because Steve Carino teaches at the Performance Center, and if he don't know psychology, I don't know who does, because that man is one of the best at it. He's a very good friend of mine. I look up to him, and he was trained. He's got the Dusty finishes down to a T. I have the Cornette finishes down. He's got the Dusty finishes down. So they're teaching it. Whether the guys get in the ring and want to do it, that's a different story. They're certainly not doing it in AEW. TNA they are. I think TNA they're getting a little better psychology. Mm-hmm. But guys take a move, they pop right back up. I don't get it.
What made you step away from in-ring competition for that period about 06 to 13? Was it just a case of moving on to something else, or accumulation of the punishment, or what was that?
I decided I wanted to get really, really rich. And not get hurt anymore. I went and did that. But I did. After my last match in WWE, which was with Harry Smith, I was dressed as Kenny Knightle, my Evil Knievel character. I think 2 weeks later, I got run over by a car right in front of my house. So that kept me out of the action for quite a while too. So I was good. I just wanted to go make a bunch of money and not injure myself. So I did some terrible movies. I got into acting a little bit like we all do. But at the end of the day, I made a lot of money in the car business, and then I got into the home improvement industry, and I did really well with that. And now I do coaching, and I do remote closing, and I do sales management, and I do a lot of stuff to improve guys' lives.
Good for you. Morris wanted to ask what you think of Cody and the whole deal with his run so far as world champion there, and the whole finishing the story deal, and now the aftermath of the culmination of winning the strap, and then where we're at now, because again, critics are giving him mixed reviews, so to speak.
Okay. Well, they gave John Cena mixed reviews too, right? No one was more heavily booed than John Cena. So I think Cody's doing a great job. I think his father would be very proud of him. I think him building AEW was an amazing thing. And I think walking away from AEW was an amazing thing, to go back to WWE to finish what he started. But it wasn't his story. It was Roman Reigns' story. Cody was just a character in that book. I think Cody's heel run will be far better than his face run. He's not ready for it yet, but I think Cody's doing a great job, and I think he speaks well, and he carries himself well, and if his father's alive, and I love his father to death. His father did great things for me too. His father would be very proud of him.
Mm. Well, we have, again, burned through another hour of very, very interesting insights from yourself and experience. Where can the fans keep up with you on social media, and do you have anything that wrestling or not that you'd like to promote and get out there for the fans' information?
Well, you can go to my TikTok, the Big Bad Wolf Ryder. You can see me on there. You'll find me on there. I will say I'm going to give this a plug. Jim Kettner's got the ECWA 50th anniversary coming up August 3rd. I was going to wrestle, but I broke my hand, and so I probably will not be wrestling. But you should probably check that out if you're in the area. And other than that, just get me on. If you want to hit me up, DM me on Instagram. You can get that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have or anything I can do for you guys. And if you own a service company, give me a call. I can help you out with more revenue.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate your time coming back again, and I have a feeling we'll we'll do this again in the future. Very, very, as I said, you bring a very unique and holistic perspective to your time in the business, and it's been enjoyable, and I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Next time, we'll get into when Cornette slapped Santino Marella in front of us all, and various other things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Pablo Guerrero tearing his bicep. There's a bunch of stuff we'll get into next time.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely keep in touch, and until then, fans, once again, want to thank Mr. Ryder for his time tonight, and this has been another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and like button, and you'll keep on top of all the great content that is coming your way, including this interview. But until next time, thanks for watching.
Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel if at all possible. It would really help me out. And don't forget, you can check out my back catalog of videos, recording